I remember it was the 12th of January. Dad came home with 2 flatbreads that were almost frozen solid in the winter cold. His face was lit up. He said, "Wake Sahar. She needs to get used to early mornings. Any day now, someone will take her by the hand and lead her to her married home." I had moaned all night with a toothache. I had cursed time and fate in my heart for Dad's empty pockets and the poverty that had bent our backs. Still, I told myself, bless Dad's spirit. After 30-something years with no suitors, he still kept a tiny hope in his heart that I'd marry. Truth be told, I was dreaming of a husband too. The thought of becoming a lady of the house, getting flowers and gold, made my skin prickle. I wasn't bad looking. I say not bad because I'm shy to admit my face didn't exactly turn heads. My figure, as my grandmother, God rest her soul, said, was like a barrel with no up or down. But I was sharp. I could handle 100 guests on my own. Of course, men never counted that as a virtue. That day, Dad had brought a suitor along with the bread. I realized it when he said loudly at the table, "Fakhri stopped me in the bakery line, said she wants a wife for Mansoor. Who better than Sahar?" I was stunned and stared at Mom. Mom, trying to hide her excitement, said, "Since when do people propose marriage in the bread line?" Modesty kept me quiet. Otherwise, I would have told Mom, a husband is a husband even if he proposes in the line for a public restroom. Naturally, our answer to Fakhri's proposal was a yes in a heartbeat. Dad himself called them and said, "Come over so we can make it official." Mansoor and I had a lot in common. The biggest was our family's finances. The funniest was our age. He was considered an old bachelor too. The moment his name landed in my ID, every girl in the neighborhood claimed he had once proposed to them and that they hadn't even glanced his way. And honestly, they weren't lying. Whenever conditions came up, Mom warned me, "Hold your tongue. Don't scare the boy away." But Fakhri herself read off Mansoor's conditions to me and kept whispering them in my ear. The most important, we would live with his mother. Mansoor's father had died years before. Now I was to carry the load of his mother. Fakhri was the kind of mother-in-law you just couldn't get along with, no matter how hard you tried. At the slightest spark, she'd take offense and set Mansoor on me. On my wedding day, the makeup artist emptied half a tub of cream on the bruises on my arms and giggled. Fakhri's fantasies ran wild. She expected things Mansoor was not a man to deliver. After the wedding, Mansoor laid it down. "This is my mother's house, her rules. Whatever she says, you say yes. If she hears one more word, you pack your bag and go straight to your father's house." My parents knew a bit about my miserable life, but every time I tried to complain, Mom said, "I took my share of a mother-in-law's barbs. Your father's belt landed on me more than once. You have to harden your heart. Marriage is like that. You don't build without burning." Days I should have spent glowing like a new bride, I spent tucked in a corner. Fakhri wouldn't lift a finger. She hadn't brought in a bride to eat and sleep, and I was too worn out from Mansoor's heavy hand to make a sound. Mansoor left at dawn and came back at night. Most nights, he was so tired his mouth fell open before his head hit the pillow. No affection, no arms, no nightly tenderness. The more I withered, the younger and livelier my mother-in-law got. When Mansoor wasn't home, she never stayed in either. She returned only after dark. Each time she came back with something, clothes, perfume, things she said some charity had given her. To this day, I don't know which charity hands out name-brand clothes to the needy. I knew if Mansoor heard my suspicions from my mouth, I would be the one destroyed. So I kept quiet. But my curiosity wouldn't let me bury my head in the sand. A few times, when Fakhri was out, I searched her room. I wanted proof, either to learn what she was up to, or to show that the woman who had poisoned my life wasn't the saint she claimed. I found nothing. By the 7th month of our marriage, I was losing my mind. Living in that house had become unbearable. I begged Mom to take me to Sayyid Muhammad. Maybe he could lift the bad weight off my life. Sayyid Muhammad was a renowned prayer reader. He charged a lot, but his prayers never missed, people said. I begged him to soften my husband, make him listen, write something to bind his tongue. The change in Mansoor felt like a small miracle. The man who used to silence the rest of my words with a slap turned, day by day, more gentle. The old bruises finally had time to fade. Fakhri's whispers didn't stop, but it was like hammering a nail into stone. Mansoor's mind had finally stirred. He remembered he had a wife. He started to take my side and move his mother out of the center of our private life. A few times he stood up to her because of me. Fakhri told him, "Don't be fooled by your wife's plain, pitiful looks. She's bewitched you." Her words had no audience. Almost 1 year into our marriage, I was finally tasting life. But with Fakhri there, I lived in fear. So I told Mansoor, "Let's rent a place and leave." I expected him to explode. I prayed on it, weighed my words. To my shock, he said, "I don't have the money, Sar. If I did, I wouldn't stay here either." Now I knew. If money came his way, he'd rescue us. I begged everyone I could for a loan. No one helped. In those days, since we had sort of pushed Fakhri to the margins, her outings and suspicious calls multiplied. A few times Mansoor nearly caught her. She wised up and straightened her act. Time passed. One day, waist deep in a pickle jar, alone, making several kilos of pickles, Mansoor called. He said his mother had some papers. Find them and send him the amounts. I called Fakhri a few times. Busy, as always. Knowing her jaw wouldn't tire soon, I went to our room and tore through our drawers. I turned the whole room upside down for a good half hour. No sign. Mansoor kept calling, impatient. I went to search Fakhri's wardrobe, drawer by drawer. In the last one, the pile of new clothes shocked me. As I was sifting, my hand hit something. 2 heavy gold necklaces and 4 or 5 thick bangles, hidden under the clothes. The receipts were nearby. They were real. I was so stunned I forgot Mansoor and the papers. I don't know what snapped in my head. I took 3 bangles, put the clothes back fast, shut the drawer, walked out. I didn't find the paper that day, but in my head, I had found the deposit for a rental. I knew Fakhri wouldn't dare tell Mansoor the gold was missing. She couldn't prove I took it either. I knew she had scored that gold with what she called her looks. I knew there were at least 2 or 3 loaded men behind those gifts. I didn't care. I wanted peace. I had to save my life from her. I didn't know what I would say if Mansoor asked where the gold came from. I only knew I had to keep it. That throwaway idea turned my life on its head. About 2 days later, Fakhri noticed the gold was gone. Like a headless chicken, she searched every corner. When she failed and sensed it was on me, she came for me. She snapped, "Did you go through my drawer?" I played dumb. I widened my eyes and said, "Why would I touch your drawer?" She grabbed my wrist, squeezed hard. "What did you do with the bangles? Where are they?" I shrugged. "You dreaming? What bangles? Did you even have bangles?" When she saw sweet talk wouldn't work, she switched to threats. Swore on her dead husband. Said if I didn't talk, she'd let Mansoor tear me to pieces. I raised an eyebrow. How easily you chew on the soul of the dead. And anyway, I didn't do anything, and Mansoor is not the same fool who obeyed every word you whispered." Before I could say more, Fakhri rushed into my room. I ran after her, terrified she'd find the bangles. She showered me with every insult. She didn't find a thing. Mansoor was due home soon. She called a truce and postponed the war to tomorrow. I knew I wouldn't slip through her hands the next day, so I fed Mansoor a wild lie I wasn't built for. I told him my parents had bought me some gold when I was a child. They had kept it to give me after I married. He asked, why didn't they give it earlier? I patched it with a few more lies, silly even to my ears. But for a man desperate for cash, they were easy to swallow. That night, he was over the moon, like he'd just rolled double sixes. I kept saying I would sell the gold only for the rental deposit. He agreed, said we'd sell it tomorrow. I knew if he saw the bangles, my plan would crumble. I told him my parents would be out late tomorrow, and I'd go get the gold myself and sell it. He didn't object. At dawn, as soon as he left for work, I took the gold. While Fakhri slept, I slipped out. I went from jeweler to jeweler. No one would buy without receipts. Finally, one agreed, for a lower price. I accepted. The moment the cash hit my hand, I felt like I was walking on clouds. Fakhri kept calling my phone. In my head, I said, "So this is how sweet money feels, Madam Fakhri." I spent the whole day at my parents' place. That night, when I was sure Mansoor was home, I returned. I handed him the bank card. I asked him to skip work tomorrow so we could go to realtors. I didn't leave his side all evening. I ignored Fakhri's burning stares. I pictured a home where I was the only woman. Sugar melted in my chest, but I was dreaming. The next morning, I woke to a brutal yank on my hair. Fakhri's fist was tangled in it. She screamed for the bangles. I looked to my side. No Mansoor. I tore myself free and said, "I don't know where they are. If you think I took them, search. This is the room." Cursing under her breath, she tore through my things. I slipped out and called Mansoor. He picked up and said he'd be home in a few minutes. Just as Fakhri wore herself out, he arrived. He stepped in with a box of pastries and a key twirling on his finger. "Where were you?" I asked. When I learned he had bought a car with the gold money, the world crashed on my head. Fakhri, realizing what had happened to her windfall, stared at him just like me, stunned. Mansoor ignored our ashen faces. Cheerful, he said, "Honey, the car was a bigger need. I'll sort out the deposit soon, I promise." After that, Fakhri and I turned into a rooster and a hen. We went at each other. I was mad at Mansoor too, and I had to fend off his mother. For a full month, I was in a boxing ring. By God's grace, I came out alive. After a while, Fakhri backed off. What was done was done. She knew she couldn't squeal, and I had to make peace, because the car was bought. Mansoor promised to use his off hours to drive passengers to save faster for the rental. I knew if I didn't get out soon, she'd slip me poison or something. I pushed Mansoor hard. Even when he came home dead tired, I wouldn't let him finish a bite of dinner. I forced him back out to drive. About 4 weeks later, the news of his crash came. Fakhri swore that if a single hair fell from her son's head, she'd bury me alive. I begged God and every saint to spare Mansoor's youth. He had fallen asleep at the wheel and hit a boulevard. The car turned into a matchbox. He suffered a brain injury. The doctors lost hope. On top of my grief, I tore myself up with blame for pushing him so hard. Fakhri didn't let a hair stay on my head with her abuse. My mother, afraid Fakhri would harm me, took me in for a while. Mansour's consciousness rose and fell. Each night I begged God, if you bring him back, I'll stay under Fakhri's thumb forever. I won't make a sound. But God did not. He took Mansour. At the burial, Fakhri's laments were curses for me. I stared at the dirt that had swallowed Mansour. I went mute. I couldn't cry. I couldn't speak. I watched the soil and the sea of black. I pitied myself. Before the week was over, Fakhri threw my things into the street. My father heard her insults in front of everyone. Silent, he loaded my things onto a pickup. After almost 2 bitter, strange years of marriage, I returned to my father's home. The rumors were many. The accusations were many. I reached the edge more than once, but each time I didn't go over. About the 3rd anniversary of Mansour's death passed. Day and night I melt like a candle, thinking I dug my own grave. I wish I had never meddled in Fakhri's affairs. I wish I had never brought dirty money into our life. Maybe I should never have said yes to Mansour. I wish I were still that girl who only moaned about a toothache. Not the ache in my heart, not the ache in my soul.